The United States is expected to relax travel restrictions on vaccinated passengers from the European Union and Britain. The new rules are expected to come into effect from November. Let's hear more on this from our Washington correspondent, Gary O'Donoghue. And not a moment too soon, many will say, Gary.
Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of relief in Europe and the UK, obviously, and Ireland for this change, because up until now there's been a sort of asymmetry to the travel restrictions. In other words, Americans have been able to travel to Europe and the UK pretty easily, providing they took tests and were vaccinated, etc. That wasn't true the other way around. For the last 18 months, most British people have not been able to come to the US, and so that's been a bone of contention. We were expecting perhaps some change to take place to that back at the G7 meeting in Cornwall. It didn't happen. They've been talking ever since. And now they've come to an agreement. So what happens now from November, if you're double vaccinated in the UK, you'll have to take a test within 3 days of travel, but you will be able to get on a plane to the US and you won't have to quarantine when you get here. Now, if you're a US citizen and you haven't been vaccinated, then actually the restrictions are being tightened for you. If you're outside this country, you'd have to take a test within 1 day of travelling back home to the United States, and then a test when you get here. The other thing that travellers from the UK will have to do is give up their mobile phone numbers and emails for contact tracing, as the Centres for Disease Control here is going to institute some sort of contact tracing method, and I presume that's about the dangers of new variants and things like that. But good news for families that have been separated, good news for the tourism industry. The airlines have been crying out for this for forever, and of course business has wanted things to open up and has been lobbying hard for this, and finally the Americans have agreed.
The new British Foreign Secretary Liz Truss has taken to social media. She's, if we can have a little look at what she's said on Twitter. Excellent news for travellers from the UK to the US. Important for our economic recovery, families and trade, she says. How much of this is down to ongoing diplomatic chats behind the scene, Gary, as opposed to the science of COVID?
Well, the interesting thing is there has been this working group talking about opening things up since the G7 between Europe, UK, US, but nothing really has emerged from it. We didn't really necessarily expect something. Expectations were dashed really at G7, and nothing really has emerged since, other than that they were sticking to the rules. So this is somewhat out of the blue. I mean, it does help, I think, in the sense that it not only does the obvious things, but of course America is facing a lot of criticism from some European allies over all sorts of things at the moment, not least from the French on the way they handled the new alliance with the UK and Australia, over the Afghanistan withdrawal. So this will help perhaps smooth over some of those problems that they've had diplomatically. I don't think that would necessarily have been the motivating factor, but it will certainly help, and it will normalise things. The other thing to point out, of course, is that the dominant variant here in the United States is the Delta variant, which is the same as it is in the UK. So in a sense you could say, what's the risk, particularly as the levels of vaccination are higher in the UK than they are here. I think if a new variant emerged, Maxine, in the UK or Europe, that might change the calculation from the point of view of the United States. They haven't said that, but that would be an obvious thing to think about. But as things stand at the moment, they think they can do this whilst keeping the population here safe.
Gary, for the moment, thank you very much. Gary O'Donoghue in Washington. Boris Johnson has also been tweeting about this development. He says the easing of US travel rules for fully vaccinated travellers is a fantastic boost for business and trade. Very similar then to what Liz Truss is saying. They've both got the memo. Adding that it was great that family and friends on both sides of the pond can be reunited once again.